We should mention a couple of the spoilers and a couple of the more confusing elements and reveals of the film. That way, as we discuss the plot, it will make a little bit more sense rather than revealing all the twists at the end of our discussion. So the first one I want to talk about is Neil as a character, Robert Pattinson's character. And when we first meet Neil, it seems as though Protagonist is meeting him for the very first time, but that, in fact, is not true at all. The truth of the matter is that Neil has known Protagonist for years, and Protagonist actually recruits Neil in the future, and he trains Neil in the art of inversion, and he instructs Neil to carry out this mission that takes place throughout the course of the film. And then, obviously, when you know by the end of the film that mysterious person who always has that red string dangling from his backpack, all those are instances of Neil helping out the protagonist, and Neil has been assigned this duty by the protagonist.
Exactly. So the first time that they meet in the film is in Mumbai. And for Protagonist and his timeline of moving forward, this is his first time ever meeting Neil. But since Neil's timeline is backwards,
he's inverted.
So Neil is inverted, and he's met and known Protagonist for years. They've had a friendship for years. This is revealed at the end of the film, obviously. That's why he knows that Protagonist doesn't like to drink on the job. He
drinks Diet Coke.
He orders him a Diet Coke. So there's always these little bits of information that Neil seems to be holding back. And the first time you watch this movie, you're like, who does he work for? Are they working for the same organization? Or he seems to know things that Protagonist doesn't know. That's because he does.
And when we say he's inverted, he's not moving backwards right now. What he's been doing is he has been using the turnstile machines to invert himself and travel back in time. And then he's reverting himself to move forward and to interact in these scenes with Protagonist. And so he has been traveling through time into the past to set the stage for the events that carry out this film. And then the next big reveal about Neil is Neil is actually Kat's son, Max. So Kat and Sater, they have that young son named Max, who she is estranged from and only allowed to visit when he exits school on his way to his driver. And this young boy is actually a childhood version of Neil.
I think it's pretty obvious because he looks like his mother. He has a similar hairstyle, a same color.
Pattinson dyed his hair for this particular movie, for this role.
He speaks in that high society English accent, which is not his natural accent, which sounds just like Kat's characters.
And he also speaks Estonian, which his father, Sater, can do.
Yeah, so he's bilingual. And he has a master's in physics, which is obviously something that the protagonist, if he recruited him, would have had him follow footsteps into. And then, obviously, the end of the film, it ends. We've all seen it where the protagonist is watching Max and Kat walking away, and you can assume that you can assume that protagonist gets out of the car and starts his relationship. And this is where the next, probably the most important reveal of the entire film is that protagonist actually is the person that started Tenet. And so, back to this idea of temporal pincers. This entire movie, the entire story is a temporal pincer. And Neil says it at the end of the film. He says the whole thing is a temporal pincer by you because Tenet is created by a protagonist in the future, which he uses to invert back in time with Neil.
And so Protagonist is the one who created this mission to stop Sater from accomplishing his goal. And the events of this film are just like the first step in him creating the organization of Tenet, because Priya, the arms dealer, tells Protagonist early in the film that Tenet was not created in the past, but Tenet will be created in the future. But we don't know who created it. And then by the end of the film, we learn that Protagonist is the one who created the organization of Tenet. He trained Neil, and as Neil grew into adulthood, he had him study physics, and then trained him for this task and put him in all the right places. And just like how Sater is able to see into the future and predict the outcomes of things and change and adapt to what happens, Protagonist does the same thing. We don't see it, but he will do the same thing 20 years from now, where because he lived these events, he knows what Neil has to do to help him out.
And another wild reveal is that the opening scene of this film, the Kiev opera scene, takes place at the exact same time as two other main events in the film, which occur at the end of the film, which is the battle at the end at Stalsk 12, and also Kat killing Sator on the yacht. All three of these events occur at the exact same time. And this is actually hinted pretty early in the film when Protagonist eats dinner with Michael Caine, who plays Sir Michael, obviously. It's a reach for a character name, Chris. I bet it's because he always wanted to be
It's a
knighted.
joke.
Yeah,
it's
he
a
never
joke.
got knighted.
He's knighted.
Is he knighted?
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
never
a
mind.
knight.
I didn't
That's
know.
the joke, that he's knighted.
Gotcha. So Sir Michael reveals to, because Protagonist is sitting down with Sir Michael to try to figure out how to get in contact with Sator and try to exploit him or try to reach him as like an agent or undercover in a way. And then Sir Michael explains to him that the way to access him is through the wife, but also that they've detected a detonation at the same time as the Kiev Opera bombing, an explosion. So that means that...
And the explosion took place at Stalsk 12, which is where Sator wants to bury his, like we said earlier, it's where Sator wants to bury the algorithm using an explosion to bury all of the items.
So basically, this scene tells you that at the very end of the film and the very beginning of the film take place at the exact same time. The explosion at the end, which buries the algorithm, or which they pulled the algorithm out, the explosion at the end occurs at the exact same time as the Kiev Opera. Again, how is this possible? Because of inversion. And again, when I say that every time you invert yourself, there's three versions of yourself. Neil, there are about 6 versions of himself, I think, in the timelines bouncing around, because at the same time, at the beginning of the movie, he's at the opera house in Kiev. He's in 2 different places during the battle. He's a child on the yacht, and he's somewhere else at the same time, too. So I think there are 6 versions of Neil going on at the same time as this scene and bouncing around throughout the timeline of the film.
It's a lot to get your head around, but when you understand it and think about it, and especially watch this film on repeat viewings, it simplifies the ideas in the story itself, and it's actually very easy to understand once you get around the complexities of it.
Someone's going to be like, oh, you called that easy to understand?
And then also another great hint that Neil is Max is the French full-length spelling of Maximilian, which would be his full name, ends with an L-I-E-N. Now, if you invert those last 4 letters of Maximilian, you get N-E-I-L, which spells Neil.
This episode of Raiders of the Lost podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, the leaders in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your comfort, obsesses over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Grooming is a necessary part of life. I don't care who you are. You know, you don't want to be coming out of COVID looking like Tom Hanks in Castaway, okay? So... Use coupon code Raiders of the Lost at checkout for 20% off and free shipping from manscaped.com. They've been awesome. They've sent us every single product they have, their performance packages. It was so cool to get those in the box. They sent us cologne, deodorizers, t-shirts, briefs. Their lawnmower buzzer is the greatest clippers I've ever used in my life. They have a flashlight. They're waterproof. You can use in the shower. Manscaped is a great gift for all the men in your life. Use coupon code Raiders of the Lost at checkout for 20% off and free shipping today.
This episode of Raiders of the Lost podcast is sponsored by movieposters.com. Use coupon code Raiders15 to get 15% off your order today. Movieposters.com sent us all these amazing 11x17 posters you see on our walls. These are high quality. They're really affordable, plus the 15% discount. You're making a steal with these. It's the holiday season. What's a better gift to get the movie lover in your life than a movie poster?
I mean, if you didn't already have movie posters, I'd probably get you one, but you seem like you have enough.
If you're going to get me one from movieposters.com.
For sure, because I mean, they're only $10 a pop for those 11x17s, and add that coupon code, it's $8.50 a poster. Easy.
So when you're going to shop online, go movieposters.com and use coupon code Raiders15 to get 15% off your order today.